Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today we're going to be doing my flawless everyday foundation routine. And I understand that I do my foundation in pretty much every single tutorial, but when I'm on the editing end of it all, the first place I will cut most of like the junk out is going to be the foundation. So you guys really aren't seeing everything that I do to make my skin look super flawless and not cakey. And I have all of my favorite products here, from skincare to powders and foundations and everything. So we are starting with a clean base. I do not have anything on. I have some like leftover like residue of mascara and liner from last night, but that's okay. But we are going to jump right into this video. And I'm going to start off with like the skincare aspects to let you guys know kind of how to get a flawless base to begin with, because no matter how much coverage you have and no matter how much the foundation is a nice foundation, if your skin is textured or uneven or any of that, it's going to be hard to get a flawless base without being cakey. The first thing I want to talk about is a cleanser, and I'm just going to briefly run through this because you guys will hear about this in a different video, but this is the Origins Checks and Balances Frothy Face Wash, and this is the cleanser I use every single night after I use a makeup wipe to take my makeup off. I will use this cleanser just to get any residue of foundation or any excess like foundation that I may have missed off. And I like this because this is good. It doesn't over dry your skin, because I do have oily skin for the most part. It has changed a lot, and I have talked about this in another video, but my skin has changed tremendously with being on estrogen and stuff like that. It's a lot more drier in the wintertime, so I don't want to use anything too harsh that's going to make my skin really super dry, because then it's like flaky skin, and foundation does not look good on flaky skin. And then I follow it up with this serum. I'd recently gotten this probably a couple of weeks ago, and I have really honestly been liking this. I don't really love serums that much, but this one is for minimizing lines and I think pores, and I really like this. I think that smoothing your skin out is really going to give you that flawless base. So I am going to apply some. Like I said, I didn't have anything on my skin to begin with. I'm going to put a generous amount and rub this into my skin. I definitely am pushing an upward motion. I know a lot of people always kind of pull down on their neck, and that is just stretching your skin out. So you just want to make sure you're kind of lifting up. I'm trying to boost, the collagen in my face, so later on in life I don't really have to get that much Botox. So next we are going to use primers, and I have two of them here because I do mix two of them together. Like I said, my skin has changed a lot, so I do like a hydrating primer. I think that it is very important, especially in this winter time. You just want to make sure, if you're going to use a mattifying foundation like I am, that you're taking the steps to make your skin look as natural as possible and not like it's dry and it's being like the moisture is being sucked out. So we're going to go in with the LA Girl Pro Prep HD Moisturizing Face Primer, and I go in with this first because I don't want the primer that I'm going to use next to kind of put a barrier. I want this to kind of soak in, and this reminds me honestly a lot of a moisturizer. If I'm going to compare it to anything, this definitely reminds me of a moisturizer, and so I kind of just apply it as such. I apply it all over my skin. There's not any areas that I avoid. I just want to make sure that my skin is hydrated and ready for me to apply my foundation. And because I have fine lines and I also have some pores that are kind of big in this area, what I like to do is use a blurring primer just on those areas, and it also helps with keeping me matte in the areas where I sometimes will get a little bit oily. So I like using the CoverFX blurring primer. You can get this at Sephora, honestly. It's like $30 something. But I use any kind of blurring primer. There's this one. There's the Urban Decay, the Naked one. That one does dry me out a little bit more than I would like it to, so I've kind of stopped using it for the winter time. But I think for summertime that would be really, really nice. But this one is just going to fill in any of those fine lines. So I have like smile lines right here because I smile too much and I laugh and it's a problem, but I just am pushing this into my skin. I really want to make sure this is warm, and I want to make sure that my skin is absorbing it and my pores are like virtually gone. I know that you guys probably can't even tell on camera, but my pores have pretty much disappeared and my skin feels so smooth. So I really like this because this does give me a nice even base, and my texture and all of that is kind of just smoothed over, so the foundation is going to lay very nicely on it. The next step obviously is the foundation, and this is probably the second most important part. I think that the skincare and the prep is the most important part to making your foundation look as absolutely as best as you possibly can. You also have to tailor to your skin. So I do have oily skin, and I do still like to use a mattifying foundation even in the winter time. So I do have to take all of those extra steps we just did to make sure that my skin does not look dry and it doesn't look cracked or it doesn't look flaky. I want to make sure it still looks smooth. So the foundation I am going to use today is the CoverGirl True Blend Matte Made Foundation. But I wanted to bring down another one because I know that I talk about this one all the time, but this is not the only one that I have loved. I do like the MAC Studio Fix Fluid. This is a little bit less on the matte side than this one. Like, this one is very matte and will keep me matte all day. This throughout the day would give me more of like a natural finish to the skin, but this one is also a very good alternative to these. I just wanted to give you guys an affordable option because that's honestly what I've been loving. And to apply it, I don't personally like using brushes to apply my foundation or concealer. I have used them in the past and I just feel like I don't get a smooth and flawless application like I do with a sponge. What the sponge helps me do is not apply too much product to my skin. That's probably the biggest mistake to avoid, is applying too much to your skin. So even if I do go a little bit heavy-handed with the foundation, I think with the sponge it'll absorb some of that and I will end up with a nice like soft and like full coverage yet not cakey look. And I think sometimes brushes don't really absorb as much as the sponge does. And a lot of people do complain that sponges absorb too much of their product and all of that, but I like it because I think that it gives my foundation the exact look that I want. So I'm going to take about 2.5 pumps on the back of my hand. And like I said, this one is a little bit too dark, but you have seen before the concealers I use, it just ends up working out. So I'm taking this beauty sponge. This is by Morphe, and I like to just go in. So I just take a bunch on the back of my sponge, and I like to start on my cheeks because that is where I think I need the most coverage. I have some redness in my cheeks and I like to just make sure that that is covered. I know that a lot of people, when they are applying their foundation, do like to apply it underneath their eyes. I avoid that area because I am going to go over it with concealer. So we are going to cover it up anyway. So I don't want to apply too much product because that's when you start to look cakey and your foundation starts to look too heavy. And when applying it on my forehead, I use just the littlest amount. I think that's probably the area of my face where I don't need foundation at all. So I just kind of apply just a super even and light layer on my forehead. So whatever's kind of left on the back of my hand is what I will use. So once I am done applying the foundation, what I do like to do is flip it to an area of the sponge that I have not used, and I like to just press around my skin to absorb any of extra foundation that I may have on there. After we are done with foundation, next is concealer. So I am going to use 2 of my favorite concealers of all time just to give me the look that I want. So I'm using the Too Faced Born This Way concealer and the Tarte Shape Tape concealer. First, I'm going to go in with this one because it is a little bit more lightweight. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to start right in this inner corner here because I do have like some dark circles. And I'm going to just drag it along without dipping my brush back in. And I'm just going to pull it down. So after that, I do like to apply it around my face just to kind of even out my skin tone. Like I said, the foundation is a little bit too dark. So I like to just apply this concealer to just even me out. So I'm going to apply it underneath my contour. In a way, we're kind of cream contouring because the foundation is a little bit darker. So applying the light here and the light here, the darker pigment is going to be right in our contour area, which is going to make our lives a little bit easier and look a little bit more sculpted. So I'm taking the side that we haven't used anything on, and I like to start on my chin first, just so my under eyes can set just a little bit. I always like to blend my under eyes at last. Also, because I am using the side of the sponge that doesn't have any foundation on it, it's also going to help absorb any extra foundation or concealer that we may have put on, which is just going to end up giving us more of a flawless base. So now I'm going to just blend out right underneath my contour, and I'm just going to drag it downwards and on my upper lip and chin, just because I want it to just sculpt out my cheek. And if I want a little bit more coverage somewhere, what I'll do is I'll just push like this. I will press my sponge instead of pouncing it over the skin. So next we are going to use the same part of the sponge that we were using, and we are going to blend out our under eye. So after I have applied all of my foundation and all of my concealer, what I am going to do is take a little bit of this Morphe continuous setting spray, and I'm going to take the flat end of the sponge. It doesn't matter, honestly, either side. I'm going to dampen it a little bit more with no product on it at all, and I am just going to press on my skin just to really add some more moisture so we don't have too much dryness going on. The steps that I take will control my oil, but I don't want to be overly dry. Like, I liked my skin to look a little bit more on the natural side. So after that, I do have to set my face. I can't just like walk out of the house with my face like this. It will honestly transfer. It will just like slide right off of my skin. So I use the CoverGirl translucent powder. I think that this is very similar to the Laura Mercier, just like a little bit on the cheaper end. And the Laura Mercier one is a little bit more finely milled of a powder. But I think this does pretty much the same thing and a really, really, really good job at an affordable rate. I do love the Laura Mercier powder, but this one I think is also just as good, and it's so much cheaper. I used to apply my powder with a sponge on my face, and I would always notice that my skin looked very powdery and it didn't look like skin, and I didn't like that aspect of my makeup. So a couple of, maybe a year ago or a year and a half ago, when everyone started applying their powder with a damp sponge, I was like, I've got to try this because I don't like the way that my face looks when I set it with a brush. So I'm going to take the same sponge that we have been using the entire time. So as you guys see, I've done foundation, I've done concealer, and now I'm going to do powder all with just this one sponge, which I think really does make such a big difference in my foundation. So I'm taking that and I'm going to dip it in the powder. I don't want a ton of powder on the sponge itself. And then I will start to set my face. There's no rhyme or reason. I just kind of set my face. And how I do that is I just take the powder and I push it into my skin. So I think that when I was using a brush, the powder was honestly just sitting on top of the skin, and it wasn't really molding with the foundation. It was just kind of like layer on top of layer on top of layer. But I've noticed doing the steps that I have been this whole entire time, like all of it just starts to mold together, and it's not like there's like 47 different layers underneath. They all just kind of combine into one, and I love that. I just think that it looks so much more natural on my face. So when it comes to setting underneath my eyes, I just take a little less of the powder and I just look straight up and I push this right into the skin. Do I think that this helps with creasing? Honestly, no. I haven't found anything, no product, no miracle technique that has gotten rid of the creasing underneath my eyes. And I've kind of come to terms with that. I understand that like everybody has creases underneath their eye, and it's kind of more or less impossible to get rid of. So my nose is where I get a little bit more oily. So I will go a little bit more heavy-handed on the tip of my nose with the powder, just because I don't want to be oily there, because that is where my foundation tends to break up the most, especially if you're like hugging someone or you're eating or you blow your nose or something. Whatever the case may be, is that time of year. Everyone's getting sick. Stay away from me if you're sick, though. Honestly, I'm not trying to get it. But yeah, so I just powder my nose a little extra, and I noticed the world of a difference. I know that I did not show this part in the tutorial, but You want to make sure that you get your neck, even if your foundation matches perfectly, you just want to make sure that there's no harsh lines or anything. So I do blend it down my neck, and I do the same thing, set it with the powder, just so it doesn't move throughout the day. So I went ahead and did my bronzer and blush off camera. We've seen this 1,000 times. But I had to show you guys this final step of the foundation portion. After my skin is done, I do like to take a setting spray and just set what I have now, and then I will set again later. So I do set my face twice. So that honestly takes away that really powdery look. So all of those steps that I have taken already have made my skin very smooth and not dry. But it still looks a little bit powdery, and I don't like that. So we're going to take the Morphe Continuous Setting Mist, and I am just going to spray. As you guys see, it's just such a difference. Like, I look at my skin right now, and if I like move, it has just some sheen in like lights. It's not dewy, and I'm not oily, but it just gives me a natural look of skin. So it doesn't look overly cakey and like I have a ton of makeup on. So this is what the foundation looks with a full face of makeup on, and I love it. I did set my face one more time, so now my skin looks perfect and I'm ready to go about my day. So I hope you guys enjoyed this foundation routine and you guys picked up some tips and tricks that I've kind of learned along the way from other makeup artists and just things that I have tried on my own. And that is how I got like a flawless foundation look. Don't forget to subscribe. That button will be down there. And also give the video a big thumbs up. Don't forget to click the bell to be notified every time I upload. And I have tons of other videos. If you want to check out my last one, I will leave that right here. Stay on the channel, have a couple laughs, learn a couple of makeup techniques, and I'll see you guys all in my next one. Bye, guys.